I Hate the News is a weekly news bulletin from I Hate Politics podcast, a show about a human activity we love to hate. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. It's October 28th, 2025. Maryland Governor Wes Moore announces that the state will stop funding SNAP benefits starting November 1st. 40 million people nationwide are going to be affected by the suspension of the food stamps program during the federal government shutdown. Maryland eliminated 170 vacant state positions and accepted 332 state employee buyouts. In state protests gather steam against Avelo Airlines, which runs ICE deportation flights out of BWI Airport, and against ACECO, the Silver Spring firm which got the contract to demolish the east wing of the White House, as well as the Maryland Israel Development Center, a state investment agency. Montgomery County planning staff report survey results on why developers with preliminary approvals to build are not breaking ground. With MCPS proposing to repurpose the new Crown High School building, competing petitions highlight a divided community. A young refugee immigrant county council candidate proposes a cricket fundraiser. And more. Stay with us.
I Hate Politics is brought to you by the Political Science Program at UMBC Shady Grove, where you'll learn a strong foundation in public policy, pre-law, and international affairs for an impactful career in a number of essential areas. Learn more at shadygrove.umbc.edu.
What's with you today? What's with today? Gotta tell her I love her.
I Hate Politics is a podcast about our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools and streets, and our local governments as they function in diverse and democratic societies. This means our politics are messy, dirty, sometimes corrupt, with often self-serving politicians. But no matter how much we may hate politics, we are never exempt from it, even when we refuse to participate. In fact, the purpose of politics is to keep society functioning, precisely when we don't agree with each other, like now. Music for this episode comes from Dear Daria, a Washington, D.C. power pop indie rock band. Mary Jo Matea on vocals, guitar, and keys. Joshua Hunter on guitar. Eamon Donnelly on bass. And Dan ABH on drums. You can find their music at deardariaband.com.
Damn the man who saved the empire. Damn the man who saved the empire. Damn the man who saved the empire. Damn the man who saved the empire.
It is now a month since the federal shutdown started. Early on, Maryland Governor Wes Moore had said that the state, during the shutdown, would continue to front the money for federal programs like food stamps, SNAP, and Medicaid health care, in the expectation that these expenses would be reimbursed eventually by the federal government. But without any reassurance from the Trump administration that reimbursement would come once the federal shutdown ended, he announced that the state could not continue paying out these benefits. Starting November 1st, SNAP benefits, food stamps, will stop for 40 million people around the country, including 680,000 people in Maryland, of whom 270,000 are children. Maryland also announced the results of its buyout offer for state employees. A total of 877 employees applied for the buyout. Here is Deputy Secretary Mark Nicole from the State Office of Budget and Management speaking at the October 22nd Board of Public Works meeting.
My name is Mark Nicole. I'm the Deputy Secretary of the Maryland Department of Budget and Management. I'm here to answer any questions the board members may have on the item that abolishes 502 positions across state government. 332 of these position abolitions are tied to the voluntary separation program. 170 of these vacant positions are being abolished across various executive department agencies. Across all funding sources, these positions result in the reduction of $27.4 million in fiscal year 2026.
Those leaving get $20,000 plus $300 for every year of service, 6 months of health insurance, and the ability to cash unused leave. The Washington, D.C. area is a particular hotbed of protests since the Trump administration came back in 2025. But 3 protests in Maryland are gathering steam. First, last week there were rallies in Annapolis to get Governor Moore to stop Avelo Airlines from flying ICE deportation flights out of Baltimore Washington International Airport, which is controlled by the Maryland Department of Transportation.
I'm Teresa Warman, and I'm proud to represent Maryland's District 16, which is Bethesda and Potomac, in the Maryland House of Delegates. But way before I was a delegate and before I was even a citizen, I was a little girl who came here from Mexico. I came to Maryland when I was 9 years old, and I was undocumented at that time. My family and I were undocumented for a long time, and my family came here because my parents just wanted safety and an opportunity for their family, and they found it here in Maryland. So this is why this issue hits so close to home for me. When I hear that Avelo Airlines, the only U.S. passenger airline currently flying deportation flights for ICE, and they're operating out of BWI, it's personal for me, and I can't stay quiet. Over the past months, Avelo has flown people to detention centers in Louisiana where conditions have been reported as unsafe and overcrowded. They're making up money off of human suffering, and they're doing it right here in Maryland. And we, as a legislature and as a people of Maryland, need to stand up and say, kick Avelo out of Maryland. Earlier this month, Governor Moore hosted a Hispanic Heritage Month celebration right there in Governor's Mansion, where he said that he stands with the immigrant communities of Maryland. Well, now is the time for him to show us that he actually stands with us. He has been known to stand up to hate and economic bullying coming out of Washington, but now we're asking him to stand with us. Stand here in Maryland and tell Avelo that their time at BWI is over.
Then there was the protest against ASCO, the Silver Spring company that got the contract to demolish the east wing of the White House to make way for a gigantic new Trump ballroom. Protesters gathered in front of their offices and a Yelp review war ensued. 7 News in Washington, D.C. has reported that the new $300 million ballroom is being paid for by private companies including Amazon, Apple, Google, Meta, which is Facebook, Microsoft, Caterpillar, Coinbase, Comcast, Micron, Palantir, T-Mobile, Union Pacific, Lockheed Martin, and Booz Allen Hamilton. The third protest gathering steam is local and aimed at the state of Maryland and Montgomery County government for supporting Maryland Israel Development Center, an entity that facilitates American investment in Israel. On October 13th, Hassan Isham, the co-chair of Our Revolution Montgomery County, a progressive group, wore a Benjamin Netanyahu mask to disrupt a meeting where County Executive Mark Elrich was speaking.
Source Mark Elrich for the County Council. Thank you so much, Mark Elrich, for continuously funding the MIDC. We endorse the State of Israel. Thank you so much for continuing to fund the genocide in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing, the genocide.
How can you do that?
The occupation. Every child killed in Gaza is killed based on Mark Elrich's support of the MIDC.
November 5th, Refuse Fascism, a leftist group, is organizing a bigger protest on the National Mall, which they say will continue for as long as it takes. The housing affordability debate in Montgomery County, Maryland, centers around competing narratives for why housing starts are slow in the county. There are nearly 27,000 housing units, mostly apartments, that have been approved by the planning board, but developers have not broken ground. The question is why? Developers point to the regulatory regime, forest conservation, stormwater management, but also permitting, and in the last couple of years, the new rent stabilization law that they say makes new building unprofitable. But County Executive Mark Elrich and rent stabilization advocates say it is the larger economic condition: interest rates, supply chain, construction costs, over which the county has no control. The staff of the planning department recently reported out a survey of developers who have not broken ground despite having preliminary approvals. Only developers representing 40% of approved housing units responded, and expectedly, the problem was not monocausal. Almost everything that could go wrong is supposedly going wrong. But in the list, please include some fix for rent stabilization. Alex Pemberton of the planning department offered causes, and Lisa Gavoni offers policy fixes.
First, market conditions in a single word are brutal right now. Very few projects are penciling out given the existing interest rates, valuations, construction costs, and rents. This is further challenged by the regional economic outlook and overall reduction, as I just mentioned, in capital flowing into real estate investments. So finally, expectations for a tepid job market have cooled interest. While Montgomery County has long been characterized by cross-jurisdictional commutation, the transition in composition of residential development from traditional single-family development to multifamily, which now comprises about 90% of the pipeline, has really strengthened that jobs and housing connection, as prospective tenants tend to seek a walkable live, work, play environment in those rental projects. So this highlights the need for policy responses to help smooth out this down cycle. Interviewees suggested expanded incentives to improve financial feasibility. They also indicated that elements of the rent stabilization legislation, particularly vacancy control and the lack of permanent date-certain exemptions for new construction, could be recalibrated to reduce the chilling effect that the legislation has had in the capital markets. Interviewees emphasized the importance of job growth and local efforts to promote economic expansion and diversification. Some suggested that policy frameworks should reflect a broader shift away from a model predicated on exactions from growth towards spurring new growth, given current economic conditions and the trajectory of the county economy. And finally, interviewees generally praised the professionalism, the procedural competence of our approvals process, but they noted that the approvals process itself is very long. This exposes projects to the risks that are inherent in an uncertain future and evolving market conditions. So some interviewees praised the process improvements already implemented, including expedited permitting processes. And they suggest expansion of such programs, but noted that these programs are only as good as their execution. So improvements to internal and interagency coordination could help shepherd projects successfully through the pipeline.
Lisa Gavoni.
The regulatory process is kind of seen as this linear process where there's no real division between our processes and permitting. So better cross-linking information across the Department of Permitting Services and Planning. And relatedly, we're looking at broader uses of expedited reviews. One expedited review in particular that I think could be broadened is the Mixed Income Housing Communities Plan, which is for affordable housing developments. Right now, you have to meet one of four broad affordability criterias, one of which is being the 9% LIHTC, which is a really high bar. We get about one 9% LIHTC project a year. But if we added 4% LIHTC projects and reduced the size requirements, we could have more projects being able to take advantage of the expedited review. The next is to strategically help close the financing gap for large scale projects that would deliver housing from the pipeline where it is most needed in the county. So the comparatively high impact taxes were mentioned as a deterrent to development in the county. We do not want to get in front of the infrastructure funding work group, which is ongoing right now. But should impact taxes remain as part of that, there could be considerations for reductions or cuts to impact taxes if projects were to move forward quickly. The next is just a broader use of financial incentives. We heard a lot about the pilot, that pilots do help. Obviously, it's a tax abatement. There could be broader use for those financial incentives, and also we know that the county is pursuing a TIF. That could also be something that the county could look at broader use of. And finally, rent stabilization. As rent stabilization is just one recommendation out of many in this project, but it was identified as a major obstacle by survey respondents and interviewees. And we know that the rent stabilization law is fairly new, but we do seem to note that it seems to be having a chilling impact on our multifamily market. One recommendation that we have for the rent stabilization program that we heard is that there's currently a 23 years exemption for new construction from the rent stabilization law, but it's a rolling 23 years, creating a specific date, a date certain, like 2002, which is 23 years ago, would ensure that only projects built before 2002 would be subject to the rent stabilization law.
Recently, MCPS Superintendent Thomas Taylor dropped a major change of plans to turn the proposed Crown High School building in Gaithersburg, Maryland, into a holding school for other schools being rebuilt and renovated. Previously, Crown was supposed to be its own high school with students carved out of Wooten, Quince Orchard, and Gaithersburg high schools. But the pushback from those high school communities was ferocious, and MCPS is now looking at a demographic cliff as student enrollments decline. In an effort to make lemonade when handed lemons, Superintendent Taylor now seeks to change course, but Jordan Kahn, a resident of the Crown development, is not happy.
The school is about halfway built, and it's on the Crown property. And it's a property that we understand the Crown developer gave to the city that then gave to the county to build a school on. And myself and many of my neighbors moved to Crown because of this possibility, which turned into an expectation. As the years went by, we went to the planning commission meetings. It's still called Crown High School. The MCPS had been for a year now studying different boundary possibilities. There were 4 different possibilities, all of which had Crown residents using Crown High School, which we thought, and the surrounding neighborhoods. Now, Gaithersburg is the most diverse city in the country, and the academic resources are lackluster. And so we all saw this, we watched it be built, and we just marveled at the opportunities it could provide this historically underrepresented community. All of a sudden, we had a real curveball. On October 16th, out of left field, the superintendent floated this proposal, which he said he thought it could be a terrible idea. And it is. We are confident in that. To instead use Crown High School indefinitely as a holding school. Crown families like me would have to continue sending their children to overcrowded schools with infrastructure problems. You may have seen just last week, the Quince Orchard High School had an evacuation. Gaithersburg High School is overcrowded. The city of Gaithersburg, where enrollment is increasing, needs better academic resources. And we all thought that this school was going to serve our community. We're outraged at this turn of events, and we don't even have an HOA. We're in new development, but we banded together. We have our first meeting tonight. We put together the petition. Petition's been out for 3 days, and we have over 300 signatories. So we've gotten some traction with the mayor and other elected officials, and we just want the school board and especially the superintendent to know that even though we don't have an HOA, we are mobilizing to oppose what we see as a violation of the public trust, a misuse of public funds, and just a terrible idea, in the superintendent's own words.
Where are your kids scheduled to go now?
Both of my daughters are in middle and elementary school in Gaithersburg, so I know firsthand the resource constraints. They're both scheduled to go to Gaithersburg High, which is very overcrowded.
You know that the competing petition has thousands of signatures.
It's not a fair fight because this community that's spearheading this is very well mobilized. They have a very active HOA. So, for example, at the board meeting last week, they had 60 people that showed up with signs. We had one person who was scrambling because we had just found out that this was an issue. So you have a very well mobilized community that wants Wooten more, to keep Wooten more than anything else. Then once this boundary study came out, they were already organized. And what they did was when the superintendent made this comment, they pivoted to support, to pushing for that proposal. So they already had the infrastructure, the emails, all of that, which we don't have any of that. We've been completely caught off guard.
Jordan Khan, good luck.
Thank you, Sunil.
Muhammad Arif Wali is a 22-year-old refugee from Afghanistan, a current student at the University of Maryland, a Blake High School alum, who has thrown his hat into the ring for the at-large race for Montgomery County Council next year. He's also an avid cricketer, having played growing up in Pakistan, where he lived when he was younger. And for a fundraiser for his campaign, he is organizing a cricket tournament at Spencerville Park this Saturday, November 1st.
I was thinking to try something new that which not everyone has done it so far. It's not just only a cricket tournament, but it's also bringing the new communities together so they could come and try out cricket, because there will be a lot of people from a lot of different areas in Montgomery County. They would also love to listen to the cricketer who are involved in cricket. Cricket is a new sport here in America, so I thought it would be interesting to bring cricket voices into local politics too. I've been organizing these tournaments for the past couple of years, so their complaints are always that they don't know much about politics. So I think it's not only like fundraising and making money out of it, but also like educating them more about our local politics.
Now, you're a cricket player yourself.
Yeah, I was playing back in Pakistan too, and when I came here in America, there was not a lot of cricket. I started a cricket club where we got a lot of support from the different communities, and now we are big enough that we are providing cricket in Montgomery County Public Schools in after-school program and also over the weekends.
Are you playing tennis ball cricket then?
With the schools, we are playing tennis ball cricket, but professionally, for my fundraising tournament is leather balls.
Are you a batter or a bowler?
I'm a batter.
What is your average?
My average is 22. I haven't played a lot of games here, so I have only played approximately 50 games here. But I play both tape balls and hard ball. But in tape ball, I have an average of 45. I play here locally and also play for University of Maryland tape ball tournament. So there I have an average of 45.
What position do you bat?
I play open there.
You open for the University of Maryland? Oh,
yes.
Okay. How many teams are you expecting to show up for your cricket fundraiser?
I'm expecting to get 8 teams, but of course we have to check the weather and see that how cold it is, and according to that we have to make a decision. But a minimum of 4 and maximum of 8.
Cricket has 3 different versions, right? One is a test match that runs 5 days. Another is a 1-day 50-over match, and then you have a 120 ball match, or a 2020 as it's called. Which is the version that you're going to play?
We are not following none of those formats. We are making it shorter because we have only 1 day and we have the field only for 1 day. So it's going to be most likely 48 balls per team, or like 60 ball maximum. So it's not going to exceed that. This is the shorter version.
Arif Wali, good luck.
Thank you for having me.
Stella's a strange and special girl, oblivious in her own world, a ray of sunshine each new day.
So that's all for this episode. Be sure to check out our feature interview series that come out Friday mornings. I Hate Politics is produced by me, Sunil Dasgupta, with support from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I direct UMBC's political science program at the universities at Shady Grove in Montgomery County, where, among other things, we explore and learn about politics, government, and society close to home. Music for this episode comes from Dear Daria, a Washington, D.C. power pop indie rock band. Mary Jo Matea on vocals, guitar, and keys. Joshua Hunter on guitar. Eamon Donnelly on bass, and Dan ABH on drums. You can find their music at deardariaband.com. If you want to share your music on the show or know someone else who might want to, please email us at producer@ihppod.org. I hope you'll subscribe and share the podcast as we bring you stories about politics close to you and to your home. See you next time.